Take a look at the bottle sitting in your fridge door right now. That smooth, velvety splash of hazelnut or French vanilla you pour into your morning coffee to make it drinkable. Let me ask you a question. Why does a product called coffee creamer contain absolutely zero cream? You think you're waking up your senses with a rich splash of dairy, but in reality, you are pouring ultra-processed, industrially whipped vegetable oil straight into your empty stomach before your eyes are even properly open. You've just accepted that slightly synthetic, thick texture as normal, haven't you? That slight film it leaves on the roof of your mouth, or that sudden, weirdly aggressive hunger pang you get exactly 45 minutes after your last sip. We've been conditioned to think this is just what modern food is, but it's actually the calling card of a brilliant multi-million-pound corporate illusion. By the time we're done today, you will know exactly how the UK food industry uses a massive legal math trick to hide nasty fats right under your nose. I'm going to show you the precise laboratory data and expert toxicological warnings that connect your innocent morning cuppa to chronic gut irritation. We will break down 10 incredibly popular brands available on British supermarket shelves right now. Names you trust, names you buy from Tesco, Sainsbury's and Asda that you need to pull from your fridge immediately. And finally, because I'm not just here to ruin your breakfast, I will reveal the 3 genuinely clean, honest brands that actually passed our rigorous scrutiny. Stick around, because the most shocking revelation on the entire list involves a brand designed specifically to look like a healthy option, and it's sitting in millions of British kitchens right now before we start naming and shaming. We need to build a quick, solid foundation so you understand exactly how you're being conned. Think about real, fresh double cream from the dairy aisle. If you leave it alone, it behaves like a natural product. The fat globules float beautifully, it blends into hot liquids because nature engineered it that way, and if you leave it on the counter, it spoils. It's simple. But corporations don't want simple. They want a product that can survive a week on a warm loading dock in the middle of summer, sit in a distribution warehouse for 3 months, and then live in your fridge for half a year without splitting or going rancid. Real dairy cannot do that. It's biologically impossible. So, how do they solve this engineering problem? They ditch the dairy and build a chemical stack from scratch. Imagine trying to make an old banger of a car look and drive like a brand new luxury saloon. You don't buy a new engine, you just weld on body kits, add fake exhaust sounds, and pump synthetic fragrance into the cabin. The supermarket creamer industry does the exact same thing. They start with cheap industrial water, dump in a load of refined seed oils like soybean or rapeseed oil, and then use high-shear mechanical blenders to force the oil and water to marry. The result is an optical illusion, a thick, white liquid that looks like cream but is structurally closer to a bottle of salad dressing. But oil and water hate each other, and the moment that fake mixture hits a hot, highly acidic mug of instant or brewed coffee, it wants to curdle instantly. To stop that from happening, the labs inject a cocktail of stabilizers and texturizers like dipotassium phosphate and carrageenan. These substances act like chemical handcuffs, holding the oil and water together so your eyes don't see the structural collapse happening in your mug. Every single drop is engineered to manipulate your tongue while saving the manufacturer billions in actual ingredient costs. It's a beautifully executed corporate heist, and your morning routine is the crime scene. Let's dive straight into the Hall of Shame, counting down from the standard supermarket offenders to the absolute biggest betrayal waiting at the very end. First up, sitting comfortably at number 10, we have Nestlé Coffee Mate Original and its popular French vanilla variant. Walk into any Tesco, Sainsbury's or Asda, and you'll find these iconic canisters and bottles dominating the ambient aisle. Nestlé has positioned Coffee Mate as Britain's favourite morning companion for generations. But let's turn that bottle around and look at the actual blueprint. After water and glucose syrup, the primary texturizing ingredient is fully hydrogenated coconut oil or palm kernel oil, alongside heavily processed derivatives. The velvety mouthfeel you are happily paying a premium for isn't coming from a dairy pasture. It is an industrial fat emulsion whipped into a visual lie. Then comes the masterstroke of legal mathematics. The food industry operates under a brilliant regulatory loophole. If a single portion of a product contains less than 0.5 grams of trans fats, legal labeling frameworks allow them to round that number flat down to 0 on the nutritional panel. So what did the corporate accountants do? They didn't rewrite the recipe to protect your arteries. They simply shrank the official serving size down to a comical single tablespoon or a tiny 4-gram splash. They manipulated the math, not the formula. If you look closely at the lab data cited by independent consumer groups like Which, you'll find that a normal real-world pour is easily 4 to 5 times that size. You aren't getting 0 trans fats. You are getting a cumulative dose of chemically restructured fats before you've even eaten a slice of toast. This heavy chemistry stack relies on dipotassium phosphate and sodium citrate to mimic dairy density at a fraction of the cost, while triggering digestive reactions in sensitive consumers. It's a brilliant way to ship cheap oil at premium prices. If you think that's cheeky, let's move on to number 9. International Delight French Vanilla. Now, while this brand is an absolute giant across the Atlantic, when it hits British specialty shelves or its direct UK market equivalents like the heavily processed ambient flavoured creamer pots you see in convenience stores, the structural scam remains identical. They market themselves as the ultimate indulgent coffeehouse experience brought right to your kitchen counter. In reality, this product runs on the exact same industrial seed oil skeleton, but it doubles down on aggressive chemical texturizers like carrageenan and gellan gum to fake a rich texture, according to published gastrointestinal toxicology literature. Carrageenan is heavily flagged for systematically breaking down the tight junctions of the human intestinal lining. Think of your gut barrier as a strict bouncer deciding exactly what gets into your bloodstream. Carrageenan essentially bribes the bouncer, creating microscopic tears that trigger systemic inflammation. You bought it because you wanted a creamy, vanilla-scented morning luxury. What you actually got was a seaweed-derived stabilizer that picks an administrative fistfight with your immune system before breakfast. To top it off, the high potassium and sodium load makes it a nightmare for anyone with compromised kidney function, while the poorly designed plastic caps accelerate oxidation the second you crack the seal, turning the oil inside progressively more rancid with every passing day. If you're sitting there thinking, well, thank God I buy the healthy version, you are going to love number 8, Coffee Mate Zero Sugar. This product built an absolute empire on a single magical word that makes health-conscious shoppers drop their guard. It is aggressively marketed to dieters, diabetics, and the metabolically cautious as a completely guilt-free morning ritual. But when you strip away the bright, clean packaging, the substitution chemistry happening inside is far more hostile than the original sugar-laden version. The sugar is stripped out and replaced with a brutal 3-compound artificial sweetener stack: sucralose, acesulfame potassium, and erythritol. Recent peer-reviewed research from clinical metabolic journals shows that repeated exposure to this specific combination alters human gut microbiome composition within just 24 to 48 hours. Here is the mechanical deception. Your tongue registers the intense sweetness, your brain tells your body a massive wave of energy is arriving, and your pancreas prepares an insulin response. But the caloric payload never arrives. Your metabolic system gets completely disoriented, scrambling your hunger signaling pathways and triggering intense, uncontrollable sugar cravings for the next 90 minutes. Zero sugar, absolute metabolic chaos. Furthermore, acesulfame potassium leaves a bitter, distinctly metallic aftertaste that the manufacturers have to mask with even more synthetic flavor additives. While independent lab testing shows that heating sucralose past certain thresholds can produce trace chloropropanol, highly toxic chemical compounds. The zero sugar claim is nothing more than a regulatory shield designed to exempt the product from carrying mandatory high sugar warning labels. If you already feel like running to the kitchen to check your own cupboard, smash that subscribe button right now, because the corporate strategies only get more cynical from here. Let's push forward to number 7, Dunkin' Extra Creamer, which pops up in major UK import stores and mainstream supermarket world food aisles, trading heavily on high street coffee shop nostalgia. When the laboratory lens is applied to this formulation, it reveals a complete metabolic disaster. The marketing team loves to brag that the product contains real skimmed milk, which sounds fantastic on a television advert, but the actual ingredient deck shows it is aggressively front-loaded with cheap sugar and high fructose corn syrup. Let's talk about real-world consumer behavior versus corporate fiction. Nobody measures out a single precise tablespoon into their morning mug. The average British coffee drinker pours a generous, unmeasured splash that equates to 4 or 6 tablespoons. That unmeasured pour delivers up to 36 grams of refined, rapid-absorbing sugar straight into an empty stomach within 15 minutes of waking up. This massive glucose spike triggers a violent spike in insulin, followed by a severe cortisol crash. You know that mid-morning slump where you feel completely exhausted and irritable? That isn't a lack of sleep, it's the creamer. And how do you fix that slump? You make a second cup of coffee, add a second massive pour of Dunkin' creamer, and trap yourself in a beautifully engineered corporate loop where the crash itself is the driving force behind the product's high consumption rate. Moving on to the plant-based section of the aisle, let's look at number 6. Silk Almond Creamer, alongside its mainstream UK equivalent, Alpro Almond Coffee Creamer. These brands position themselves as the clean, ethical, planet-saving alternatives for the conscious consumer who wants to step away from industrial dairy. But the ingredient reality completely dismantles this wellness narrative on contact. Almond milk is proudly listed as the first ingredient, but what they don't tell you is that commercial almond milk is roughly 98% water and just 2% actual almond solids. To turn this thin, watery liquid into something that possesses the visual density of real cream, the manufacturer introduced high oleic sunflower oil and dipotassium phosphate. You are paying a massive plant-based lifestyle premium for a bottle of basic water, cheap seed oil, and a laboratory thickener wearing a clever almond costume. At number 5, we find Planet Oat Oat Milk Creamer and its UK supermarket counterparts like Oatly Barista and generic store-brand oat creamers. These products capitalized beautifully on the massive oat milk wave that swept through independent British coffee shops and reformatted it for the home kitchen. But the underlying plant biology is completely unforgiving. Oats contain almost zero natural fat. They cannot physically replicate the velvety texture of double cream. To solve this engineering obstacle, Planet Oat and similar brands blend hydrolyzed oat flour with canola or rapeseed oil, gel and gum, and sodium citrate. The resulting liquid is a highly viscous, starchy oil and water emulsion that mimics dairy density on your tongue, but delivers a concentrated dose of refined, highly processed omega-6 fatty acids in a matrix that is incredibly prone to oxidation. Plant-based does not mean clean. In this bottle, it is simply a premium marketing skin pulled over the exact same industrial seed oil framework you find on the cheapest products on the shelf, frequently carrying trace glyphosate residues from pre-harvest agricultural spraying. Number 4 brings us to the ultimate premium illusion, Starbucks at-home creamer, specifically in flavors like white chocolate mocha. produced under a massive global licensing agreement by Nestlé. It sits on the shelf, looking incredibly sleek, promising the high-end coffeehouse experience right at your kitchen counter. Yet, the formulation depends entirely on heavy chemical scaffolding to survive inside your mug. While the base does technically include milk, its structural integrity in a hot, highly acidic environment is entirely propped up by dipotassium phosphate and carrageenan. The dipotassium phosphate does a highly specific job. It acts as a chemical buffer to stop the heavily processed, denatured dairy proteins from curdling and separating the second they hit the heat of your coffee. Real, fresh British cream does not require a chemical buffer to behave itself in a mug. The very presence of that chemical buffer on the label is an open corporate confession that the dairy being used is so utterly processed and dead that it cannot survive the very coffee it was designed for without laboratory assistance. Let's hit the bottom of the barrel at number 3. Great Value Coffee Creamer, which represents the ultimate baseline of store-brand economy options found in discount retail giants and budget supermarkets across the UK, like everyday value lines. This product exists for one single solitary purpose: to deliver the lowest possible unit price on the shelf. To achieve that rock-bottom price point, the formulation abandons even the pretense of quality, using dried corn syrup solids combined with partially hydrogenated soybean oil. Hydrogenated oils are fats that have been violently restructured at a molecular level using chemical catalysts, so they can survive ambient storage on a supermarket shelf for months at room temperature without going rancid. That exact molecular restructuring is the precise mechanism that caused health authorities worldwide to declare artificial trans fats an absolute public health hazard. Yet, because of the serving size loophole, they legally stamp 0 trans fats on the front panel while delivering a measurable cardiac invoice with every single pour. You save 50 pence at the checkout, but your cardiovascular system pays the actual bill. Number 2 takes us back to the high-end deceptive aesthetics with Califia Farms Oat Creamer. Califia Farms invested millions into a stunning matte finish bottle, clean minimalist typography, and a distinct wellness aesthetic that screams pure California coast luxury. But behind this beautifully styled visual identity, the actual texture is still clumsily constructed using cheap sunflower oil or rapeseed oil. Worse still, the entire flavor profile relies heavily on the mysterious phrase, natural flavors. That phrase is one of the biggest legal loopholes in modern food labeling. Under that single, innocent-sounding term, a manufacturer can legally hide dozens of synthetic chemical compounds, industrial processing aids and solvent residues engineered specifically to hyper-stimulate your brain's reward centers. You read natural vanilla and picture fresh orchids growing in a field. The industrial chemical factory delivers a synthesized compound your body has never seen before. Finally, at number 1. The absolute biggest diagnostic surprise of the entire investigation, Natural Bliss by Coffee Mate. This brand is the corporate empire's strategic weapon against the clean-eating movement. The bottle is a masterpiece of psychological manipulation, displaying a tiny ingredient list with all the visual restraint of an artisanal dairy farm. The seed oils are completely gone. Real milk and real cream appear proudly at the top of the deck. It is perfectly engineered to catch the consumer who has realized that original Coffee Mate is junk and is actively seeking a safe haven. But look closer. The milk and cream used in this formulation are ultra-heat treated at extreme pasteurization temperatures that fundamentally denature the dairy proteins and completely obliterate the delicate, heat-sensitive nutrient profile that should be present in real cream. The manufacturing process effectively kills the food, and then the lab technicians rebuild the lost flavor depth using synthetic natural flavors to trick your tongue into thinking it's tasting fresh dairy. It's the exact same parent company, utilizing the exact same upstream industrial supply chain, just wearing a cleaner, more expensive outfit to take more money out of your wallet. And now, what it was worth watching all the way through for. The moment we step out of the corporate hall of mirrors and look at the actual solutions available on British supermarket shelves right now. If you want to escape the chemical sludge of engineered seed oils, you do not have to resort to drinking your coffee black and miserable. There are exceptional, high-integrity brands available right down the street at your local Sainsbury's, Tesco, Waitrose, or M&S that completely pass our rigorous laboratory ingredient and metabolic criteria. Let's kick things off with our most accessible, mainstream recommendation at number 3, Yeo Valley Organic Double Cream. If you want to know what completely disrupted the premium creamer market by refusing to participate in the industrial oil framework, you look at pure, unadulterated British organic cream. Turn the tub around and read the single-item ingredient deck. Pasteurized organic double cream. That is the entire composition. There is no dipotassium phosphate, no carrageenan, no mono and diglycerides, no refined sunflower oil, and no gellan gum. When you pour a splash of this into your morning brew, the rich, luxurious mouthfeel is delivered structurally by the natural fat globules of actual fresh dairy. Nature already engineered these fats to disperse beautifully and uniformly across hot liquids without requiring chemical intervention from a corporate lab. It completely aces the hot coffee curdle test because it enters your kitchen as genuine, nutrient-dense food rather than a complex synthetic patent application. The sensory experience is completely distinct from the bad options. It leaves no greasy chemical film on your palate, and it offers a deep, authentic dairy sweetness that naturally softens the bitterness of your coffee. Price-wise, a standard pot costs around £2 at any major British supermarket, breaking down to mere pennies per serving. It is a massive financial and structural victory over the artificial alternatives, though its single downside is a shorter, natural shelf life. Meaning you actually have to use it fresh rather than letting it sit in your fridge door for 6 months like a toxic chemical waste deposit. The milk is sourced exclusively from British organic family farms that prioritize animal welfare and strictly reject routine antibiotic treatment, providing a clean baseline that supports both your body and local agriculture. For the consumer who cannot or chooses not to consume dairy, let's move to number 2, Rude Health Organic Ultimate Almond, or their Barista Oat variant. These products are available across major supermarkets like Waitrose, Sainsbury's and Ocado, and they represent the absolute structural standard for plant-based purity in the UK. While big commercial brands like Alpro and generic store-brand value alternatives use cheap sunflower oil or aggressive gums to fake a thick density, Rude Health rejects the shortcuts entirely. The ingredient deck on their ultimate almond formulation contains exactly 4 recognizable items: spring water, organic rice, organic almonds, and a touch of cold-pressed sunflower oil purely for emulsion stability, with absolutely zero industrial thickeners or synthetic natural flavors. The velvety texture is achieved entirely through a high-density mechanical filtrations process that retains a significantly higher fraction of actual organic plant solids than the competitor formulations are willing to invest in. Rude Health simply uses more actual food and more precise manufacturing refinement. When it hits your hot coffee, it doesn't separate into a depressing, watery ghost or form a weird chemical skin. It creates a smooth, naturally nutty background that pairs beautifully with the roasted profile of your coffee beans. Yes, it sits at a slightly higher price point than basic supermarket value milks, usually retailing around £2.50 a carton. But you are paying explicitly for the absence of chemical stabilizers and the presence of genuine organic ingredients. It is the ideal option for a plant-based lifestyle where the manufacturer hasn't optimized the recipe solely for corporate profit margins. Finally, at number 1, we reach the absolute gold standard of what can be achieved when a producer completely prioritizes structural integrity over industrial scale: estate dairy double cream or Guernsey whole milk. Alongside their exceptional half-and-half styles found in premium independent shops, Whole Foods London and high-end Ocado lines, this represents the absolute operational ceiling of the entire category. Sourced from dedicated herds of pasture-fed Guernsey and Jersey cows, this dairy contains exclusively the A2 beta-casein protein variant. Let's talk about why the A2 designation matters at a deep physiological level. Standard mass-market commercial milk found in basic value plastic jugs across Britain contains the A1 beta-casein protein variant. This is a mutated protein structure that emerged from aggressive commercial breeding, designed purely for high industrial volume. Emerging gastroenterology research explicitly links the breakdown of the A1 protein during digestion to bloating, systematic abdominal discomfort, and low-grade gut inflammation in a massive subset of the population who mistakenly believe they are lactose intolerant. A2 beta-casein is the original ancient heritage protein structure that pre-industrial cows produced naturally. The estate dairy maintains a dedicated commitment to non-homogenized, low-temperature pasteurization methods that preserve the delicate. Heat-sensitive omega-3 fatty acids and conjugated linoleic acids that are instantly destroyed by the ultra-high-temperature processing of the big brands. The sensory difference is staggering. It is incredibly rich, naturally sweet, and creates a beautiful, traditional cream line at the top of the bottle, proving that zero industrial homogenization has taken place. It contains absolutely zero additives, zero fillers, and zero chemical buffers. You know the exact source, you know the distinct heritage breed, and you can taste the pasture. It is undeniably a premium product with a price tag to match. But if your morning routine demands the absolute ultimate level of nutritional purity and culinary performance, this is the definitive choice for your kitchen. To make sure you never get conned in the supermarket aisle again, here are 6 concrete, non-negotiable rules you can use to audit any bottle right there in the shop floor. Rule number 1. Perform the immediate flip test the second you pick up a bottle in Tesco or Sainsbury's. Turn it around and look directly at the second and third positions on the ingredient deck. If you see the words rapeseed oil, palm oil, sunflower oil, or vegetable fat, put it straight back on the shelf because you are holding a processed chemical emulsion, not a dairy product. Rule number 2. Treat the phrase natural flavoring as an immediate red flag on any label. Under current UK food labelling standards, that single innocent phrase can legally mask dozens of complex synthetic chemical compounds and industrial processing solvents engineered purely to hyperstimulate your brain's appetite center. Rule number 3. Scan the lower half of the ingredient deck specifically for chemical acronyms and stabilizer compounds like dipotassium phosphate, sodium citrate, or mono and diglycerides of fatty acids. These are industrial texturizers used solely to keep water and cheap oils from separating in your mug, acting as an open corporate confession that the base liquid is completely denatured and dead. Rule number 4. Run the real-world consumption math on any flavored option you buy. Ignore the official, legally permitted single tablespoon serving size written on the back panel. Multiply that sugar count by 4 to replicate a genuine, unmeasured British pour, and if that total exceeds 12 grams of sugar, you are choosing to start your morning with a massive glucose spike larger than a bowl of frosted children's breakfast cereal. Rule number 5. When navigating the plant-based milk and creamer section in Waitrose or M&S, look exclusively for the words organic certified and short ingredient lists containing under 5 items. If a plant milk requires a heavy laboratory scaffolding of gellan gum and vegetable oil to mimic creaminess, The manufacturer has explicitly optimized the recipe for corporate cost-cutting rather than consumer health. Rule number 6. Check the storage instructions on the bottle. If a liquid cream alternative claims it can be safely stored in an ambient cupboard for 6 months without splitting or going sour, its biological structure has been completely altered to survive warehouse abuse, making it fundamentally incompatible with your natural digestive microbiome. When you sum up everything we have uncovered today, the entire system becomes incredibly clear. The multi-billion-pound mainstream food industry is not built to nourish you. It is meticulously engineered to maximize shelf life, minimize ingredient costs, and exploit legal labeling loopholes to their absolute limit. The massive conglomerates dominating our supermarket shelves have spent decades conditioning us to accept chemically whipped vegetable oils and synthetic texturizers as a completely normal part of our British morning routine. But the moment you shift your mindset from reading the bright, deceptive marketing on the front of the bottle to analyzing the cold, hard laboratory facts on the back, the illusion completely collapses. You hold the ultimate consumer power simply by refusing to buy into the corporate lie. Thank you so much for investing your time with me today to dig up the truth behind our daily habits. If you have a mate who is currently pouring a massive splash of fake vanilla or zero-sugar hazelnut oil into their morning cuppa, thinking they are making a healthy choice, share this video with them immediately because they deserve to know exactly what they are putting into their body. Drop a comment right down below and let me know completely honestly which of these mainstream brands is sitting inside your fridge door right this second. If you want to keep breaking down the hidden corporate architecture of the food we buy every day, click right here to watch our full investigative exposé on what supermarkets are actually putting inside everyday supermarket bread. Take control of your kitchen, stop paying premium prices for cheap industrial shortcuts, and read the back of the bottle. See you in the next one.